Morning, boys and girls, friends, enemies, and all those that fit into categories in between. I don't mind, you're all welcome. Today I'm going to talk about bodily fluids. Not mine, that is. The bikes. I decided the other day, cold miserable day as it is, I mean last night was -1, it's only about 6 degrees now Celsius. Decided to do all the fluids. Now I know the engine oil had been changed, quite happy with that. So I did the brakes, fluid's all good. Did the gearbox, fluid good, bordering average, no problem. And I thought, yeah, glad I did it. Need something to put it in my little book and remember. Then I did the bevel box, or rear drive unit, whatever you want to call it if you're not into the terminology. And so I dropped that, and good God, talk about horrified. It come out as black as a coal miner's bum in an unlit cellar. It was disgusting. Certainly hadn't been changed since Noah was a kid, even before he'd even thought about arcs. So that's what today's little jaunt is about, really. Change the oil, get it running, let it wash round, get it up to temperature, and then as soon as I get back, while everything's still warm, I'll drop it out again and do another flush through and see what it looks like then. The magnetic drain plug had the usual slurry, and I investigated that very closely, and just the usual expected slurry from the bottom of a bevel box gearbox type situation. There were no horrific chunks or glittery bombs. And then I thought, I've got a little endoscope thing plugs onto my laptop. Oh, they're great fun. You'd be surprised at the places you can look that you've never seen before. All sorts of cracks and crevices. Get your mind out the gutter. I'm talking about down the side of the sofa, under the fridge. Yeah. All sorts of places. So I stuck it in the bevel box from the top and from the bottom. I couldn't see a lot, but I could see enough to know that it wasn't in bad condition. And then I thought, now these bikes from the very late 90s, I've got a draft somewhere, very late 90s till the mid 2000s, just manoeuvre these guys. Avoid this way on the way back. The dreaded amplen, or traffic light, whichever language you speak. So I thought, knowing the history of these bikes and knowing that the liner in the petrol tank, or the coating of paint, again for those of you not of a mechanic and spanner throwing era, was known to badly deteriorate, come out in big flakes and chunks and So I stuck the endoscope in there. Now, it's fairly full of petrol, so I didn't want to dip it in too far. It's got a light in it, it's got power to it, and you know, what the hell, if it does ignite a spark and go bum, it's always better to go out with a sort of big bang rather than a chronic whispery whimper. So stuck it in, and yeah, it's all bubbled, flaked off around the top. They'll be sitting in the bottom of the tank somewhere. So God, that was a healthy piggy smelly. It almost reminds me of when I was a policeman, used to go in and find dead bodies. Now when you find one that's been there for 4 or 5 days, yeah, that's an aroma that gets in the back of your throat and nose and stays with you for days. Anyway, we're talking about bikes, aren't we? I digressed. Yeah, it's going to need all cleaning out. The old nuts and bolts rattle and shake job, and something like 415 or something whacked in and coated. The only problem with twin packs is most of them, they don't really work until the air temperature is around 15 to 18 degrees. It doesn't settle. So I will leave that for as long as she's running for a warmer day. If you do it in this weather, it's not going to dry, it's not going to seal. When I did Squeak, it wasn't that warm, and I ended up putting the fuel tank in the airing cupboard. By the morning, everything in the airing cupboard, everything in the flat smelt like the washroom of a brothel on wash day. Pungent but interesting aroma. Just clear out a bit. And yeah, so I'll have to wait till it's sort of gets up to the mid-teens before I do it. Just a fingers crossed job. But other than that, I mean, they're the sort of things that 22-year-old bike you expect to find. You cannot buy a bike of this age. Dear oh dear. It's a 30 limit, not a 20 limit. They're the sort of things you do expect to find. Oh my God, why is everybody going so bloody slow? You buy an old bike, you expect problems. Nothing I can't fix. I think if the crankshaft splits or the big ends go or something, I might give up and save up and get another bottom end unit. I'm not that adventurous these days. Bearing in mind I do everything in the garden. Although the KTM engine did come into the living room, lots of plastic and cardboard down, but then that was the middle of winter. Yeah, it's an update on the bike. Update on me, I'm still a cranky old bugger. But I've found a name for the beast. Now some of you will recognise the names of my bikes from Sir Terry Pratchett's writings, and those of you that don't, not much explanation can be given other than say Squeak had a twofold name. One, I knew of Squeak and liked him, and two, when I bought it, my daughter, she was a lot younger then, about 11 or 12, had a ride on the back, and she said the rear suspension squeaks, so it got the name Squeak. Now the KTM I didn't get on with too well because it always wanted to fly. You only had to touch the throttle and it wanted to romp down the road at a rate of knots. And I'm more a potterer like this. I like to just pootle, trundle, whichever verb or adjective you wish to throw at this type of riding. So because it was a bit of a flyer, I named it Quoth, which is a black raven on this particular subject. Now this one, there's a character called Death, usual skull, cloak, scythe, the usual image of death. And he had a very dry sense of humour in these writings. And it was said that if you look into the sockets of his skull, you could see the octarine colours and all the stars of all the universes. Not that many people got to look in his eyes. He was too busy borrowing their souls. But Death decided at one point in his life he needed a steed to help him get about. So he chose a large white steed. Beast could fly through time and space. And being a solemn sort of character, he decided he would name it. Can we get through? Vinci. So, in line with Sir Terry Pratchett's writings, honour him, this bike shall be known as Vinci, because although I like to trundle, when you twist the tap and the fuel flows, my God, she does pick up. Obviously not as excitingly as a 1200 or 1250, but she would certainly keep up with most bikes. On a section of private road, I had it well over 120 and the rev counter was still below 6, and she revs out at 7.5, so I'm not unimpressed with her. I do remember the last bike I had to come over to England from Jersey, and I went to stay with a friend in Salisbury, and I had an appointment in London early the next morning, so bright and early with the sparrows chirping and mist on the ground, I set off and I got on the M4. I was flying. I was chasing a BMW car 5 Series up the motorway for a good part of the way, and I eventually pulled into a services and he'd pulled in behind me and he said, "Do you know, I had to let you get level with me to make sure you weren't a bobby." At that time I was, but in Jersey, not in England. And I remember getting to the flyover as you enter London. There's about 4 or 5 speed cameras, and I got every single one of them flash me. Bidding, bidding. And I thought, well, I'm going past all this traffic very well, and they're all taking photographs of me. Haha. Well, they didn't bother chasing me to Jersey. Probably too much hassle for them. Nevertheless, I know these babies can... Oh, I'm not going that way then. I know these old girls can fly. That's about it, I think. I can't think of anything else to mumble about. I'm sure there'll be another upcoming grumble. I do love these chimneys. I know, sad thing to love, isn't it? But aren't they beautiful? The workmanship that would have gone into those in the day. slow? I am slow. Give me a break. Going slower, I'll be going backward to birth. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to head home. It was not a long trip, just enough to warm the bevel box up. And I've got a quick oil change to do as soon as I get back before everything gets cold. But while I'm doing that, the kettle will be on and jockey bickers will be out. So from me, it's a goodbye. Just remember, look after each other, help each other. If you're on two wheels, whether you're being helped or helped, pays dividends. And whatever life throws at you, just bloody laugh at it. At the end of the day, we're all going to end up in our own particular version of nirvana, or whatever you ascribe to. There's no escaping it. So, adversity, yeah, laugh at it, have a chuckle. Bye.